All right, welcome to part 3 of our snake game. So we've made a body part, we made a snake. It's time to make the mouse that the snake can eat, and so it can grow and keep track of score and so on and so forth. So let's make the mouse. I'm gonna go over my project. I'm gonna make a new file. Mouse. Okay. All right, so for the mouse, let's see. When we build this, we need to do a couple of things. So a mouse is just simply going to be a rectangle that is the exact same size as the snake body part. Now, I could later put an image in for the rectangle and just make sure that the image is the same size as the rectangle. And I could mess with it just to make sure that it works. But for the sake of argument, let's just make the rectangle, test it, and see that it's working. And then we can go in and clean it up however we want as we start getting closer towards the end of our project. So for this, I am going to need to import the snake from snake import star, and that's because a snake is going to have to eat a mouse, so I'm going to need to know information about the snake in order to do this. I'm also going to bring in the random library, which I haven't used before, so that I can put mice in random locations in the window. And I need to make sure that I put it in a place that is not currently a snake body part. So let's get into this. We're going to create class mouse. Okay. I'm going to create one static attribute here called mice eaten. That's going to keep track of how many points we have. I'm going to set it equal to 0. Okay, so remember, a static attribute doesn't necessarily belong to the object, but to the class itself. That way I can keep track of points later on if I want. All right, now as far as the actual object itself, we're going to go def init. Okay. I'm going to pass in a window here. That way I can put it somewhere randomly in the window. But I don't need to pass in anything else because remember, I want to put it in random locations. And I just need to make sure that the locations are on the 20s so that it can match up with the snake body part. All right, so I'm going to create a X location, a Y location, and then the mouse. So let's do self.x equals a random.randRange. I'm going to use the rand range here because I want to make sure that I have a step in there. It can't just be a random integer because I need these mice to be at like x coordinates 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. I can't put it at like 107 because then my snake head won't match up with the mouse perfectly. That's the whole goal. I'm trying to make this easy on myself. So if I do everything on the 20s, then I don't have to worry about making all sorts of less thans, greater thans, and things like that. I can just go straight equal to. So I'm always trying to make things easier for myself. So I'm going to do it between 0 and win.getWidth, okay, minus 20. Okay, I'm going to go plus by 20. And the reason I'm doing the minus 20 is because remember, this is the top left corner of the mouse of the rectangle. And if I put it at win.getWidth, then when I make it 20 pixels wide, it's going to be outside the window. So if I go minus 20, then that'll put it right on the edge and I'll be able to get to it very easily. And the 20 just makes it be a random number between 0 and this number, but by 20. So it could be 0, it could be 20, it could be 40, it could be 60, it could be 80, so on and so forth. I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to do it with the y coordinate now. So let's just grab this, we'll copy paste, we'll change this to y. Change this from get width to get height. Okay, that way it's all the exact same for what I want. Okay, now I need the actual mouse. Let's clean that up a little bit. I need the actual mouse, which is just going to be a rectangle. Rectangles need points. The first point is going to be a self.x, comma self.y. Okay, and then the second point is going to be the size of it. Now I know I'm not changing the size of these things at all, so I'm going to go with a point, say self.x plus 20, comma self.y plus. There's my rectangle. Okay. So there we go. I'm also going to put in a toString method here because I don't have anything else that this relates to. I'd like to know the exact location of the mouse all the time. So here's my str. And we're just going to return an f string that says mouse location. Quick parenthesis, yes, self.x, comma, y. See if we should be good. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video. There's my constructor. It has the x coordinate, the y coordinate, and the rectangle itself. Pause it, make sure you got everything in there the way that we want, and then when you come back, we'll finish out with some of these other methods. All right, now since I have these two private attributes, let's make some get methods in here. So again, those go pretty easily, and our draw method. So I'm just going to copy and paste those into here just to make things go a little bit quicker. You don't need to see me write that. So the self.get, or the getX method, just returns the self.x. The getY returns the self.getY. The draw mouse function, okay, so I have a function called draw mouse. It passes in a window. It sets the mouse color to blue just so it's different than the snake, and it draws it to the window. Okay, again, nothing really complicated there that I need to really talk too much about. Go ahead, pause the video, and get those three methods in there as well. Okay, now the next part is the mouse needs to get eaten by the snake. So we need to make sure that we can check to see that the snake has overlapped with the mouse. And when it has, we need to put it into kind of a new location. So we're going to write two functions here that are that correlate with that. So first and foremost, I'm going to write a function called good location. What this function is going to do is place the mouse in a new random location that is appropriate, and we make sure that it's not overlapping with any of the snake's body parts, because what I don't want to do is have a mouse pop up that's on one of the green rectangles and the mouse is, or the snake is already going over it, because that seems silly to me. So let's write that function first. I'm going to go def good location. Okay. And for this, I'm going to pass in an x and a y. This is where I'm going to tell it to go. Okay. And I'm going to pass in a whole snake object. That way I have access to the body parts and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Okay, so all this is going to do, it's going to loop through all the body parts in the snake list and tell me if the X I passed in matches any of the X's from the snake body parts list, or if it matches any of the Y's. And if it does, I'm going to return false. If it doesn't, I'll return true because I know it got put in a good location. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go for part in snake dot get parts. Okay, remember that method returns the list of body parts. Okay. If the part dot get x is equal to the x passed in, and part dot get y is equal to the y that I passed in, I'm going to return false here because I know it's not a good location. And if I can get through all of this without returning false, then I'm going to return true because then I know it is in a good location. So there's my good location function. That seems to be fairly straightforward and comes together pretty easily. So I'm going to pass in an x and a y. That's a location, a possible location for a snake, for a mouse, I should say. And then I have the snake getting passed in. As long as the x and y that I pass in aren't x and y coordinates from any place on the snake, then I know it's a good location. But if it is, if this returns true in any way, return false, then we want to put the mouse in a different location. Okay, so now let's write down a method that allows the mouse to be eaten and then put in a new location. So I'm going to go with def eaten, okay, and I'm going to pass in a snake. Okay, and I'm going to pass in a window because I need to make sure that I put the snake or the mouse in a new location. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. If it's been eaten, okay, we already know it's been eaten. That's what this function does. It takes care of it when it gets eaten. Okay, that's all we know. How we figure out if it's gotten eaten or not, that's a problem for another time. But for right now, if it's been eaten, all right, we know it's been eaten. Here's what we want it to do. We're going to update mouse.miceEaten. We're going to increase that by 1. We ate a mouse. It should get updated. We're going to come up with a new x and a new y coordinate for the mouse to move to. Equals random dot rand range, and we're going to type in 0 comma win dot get with, it's the same thing from above, minus 20 comma 20, and we're going to do a new y equals random dot rand range 0 comma win dot get height minus 20 by 20. Okay, so there's my new x and new y for where I'd like to put the new mouse, okay? But I need to make sure that it is in a good location. And while it's not in a good location, get new X's and Y's, okay? So instead of an if here, I'm going to put a while loop because I want it to keep doing it until it is in a good location. So while not good self.good location. And the good location function requires an X and a Y. So new X, comma, new Y. And it requires a snake object. Yeah. So while it's not a good location, I just simply want to do this again. Get a new X and a new Y. Keep doing it over and over and over again until you put the mouse in a location that the snake isn't already at. All right, so now that I know where the new X and the new Y are, what I'd like to do is move my mouse to that location. Oh, there's a bunch of different ways to do that. We could probably just make a new mouse. We can get rid of the old one and make a new one, and do what we need to do. So let's do that. Let's do it this way. We'll just move it. So we'll go dx equals new x minus self.x. dy equals new y minus self.y. Okay. We're going to go self.mouse.move dx comma dy. So that'll put it in the new location. Okay. So the subtraction just simply makes it so that I can put it in the right spot, and then we can work our way through that. Okay. One sec here. It looks like I'm offline for some reason. Let's just connect again. Okay, that should work. Okay, now that I have it moved, I want to update the x and y coordinates to be the new x and y coordinates. So we go self.x equals new x and self.y equals new y. Lots of different ways to do that. This is just one way. I'm going to illustrate some different pieces. So we've moved it appropriately. We've gone all the way through. So here's what we got. We increase mice Eaton. We get a new x and a new y for where the mouse should be. While it's not in a good location, get new x's and y's. Once we know it's in a good location, we figure out how far we need to move the old mouse to the new mouse by taking the new x and subtracting the old x and the new y subtracting the old y. This will allow me to move the rectangle using the move method from the graphics library, and then I simply update the x and y coordinates to the new values. So go ahead, pause the video, get that Eaton in there, and we'll see how we can test all of this. Okay. So pause it and go for it. Now that you're back, let's just test the mouse. Okay. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. We know that snake works. We just need to test these functions to see that they do things appropriately. So let's put our main method out there. Okay. We'll make a window. I'll make a mouse. We'll make a snake because we need that in order to test some of these things. 400. Let's do a snake. Draw window. Do a mouse. Draw mouse window. Okay, and then we'll test this Eaton function a couple times. So while not win.closed, we'll just do a win.getMouse, mouse.Eaton. Okay, we'll pass in the snake, we'll pass in the window, and then we'll just print so we can see that it's been updated. And we'll do, and that'll be it. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. We should see a snake on the screen, a mouse on the screen. Okay, snake is pretty small. Now when I click, you see the mouse is now going to random locations. And I know it's hard to test our theory about the mouse not landing in certain areas, like on the snake. I think that's just going to have to come in through gameplay as we're playing it a lot. Do we ever notice that the mouse can't be seen or anything like that? but I think we can trust ourselves in what we're doing, that it's not going to end up in certain spots. It'll end up right next to it. It could end up right in front of it. It could end up right behind it, but it'll never end up exactly on top of any snake body part. So that's it for a mouse. A mouse is a very simple object, okay? So here we've got some import statements. We've got the class mouse, we've got the static field, and the constructor. The constructor is small. It has 2 attributes plus the rectangle itself, so 3 attributes in total. We've got our toString method that prints out where it's at so that we can see where it's going. So why don't you go ahead and pause the video here if you need to fill out the constructor a little more. Once your constructor's filled out, make sure you've got your get X, your get Y, and your draw mouse function all done. Again, those are pretty self-explanatory, so go ahead, pause the video, see that it's working appropriately. Then we had one other function called good location. That function allowed us to iterate through all the parts in the snake list, in the snake parts list, to see if the X's and Y's we pass in are equal to any of the X's and Y's that are part of the parts in the body list. If they are, then I know it's not a good location. If they aren't, then I know it is a good location. So I have it returning true and false appropriately. So there's your good location function. So go ahead and pause the video and copy down your good location function if you need to. Now the last function is the Eaton function. No, we did not write any work that got us to the point C if it's been eaten, but that's not the point of the mouse. The point of the mouse is to just get eaten. We'll let the game itself figure out whether or not we've eaten the mouse. So we'll get these things to interact in that way. So right now, when it has been eaten, okay, we're going to increase our static member, our static field. We're going to get new X's and new Y's. And if they're not in a good location, update them, get new X's and new Y's. And once they are in a good location, move the mouse to that location and update again its X and Y coordinate. Lots of different ways to do that, but this is one of those ways that we can kind of work with. We could undraw and just redraw the object and put it in the next spot and then update the fields. That's another way to do it. I'd elected to go with this particular route. That way I don't have to delete information and reinstantiate anything. So there is your mouse. Okay, here is the test for the mouse. So if you need to pause it and get the test done, get the test done. But then go ahead and upload your completed code to the assignment in Google Classroom for this video. And we, in the next video, will then be able to put the actual game together and get these two classes, I should say, snake and mouse, to actually interact with one another appropriately.